If your favorite FPL creator is not FPL Hive, there is a high chance that they are below me right now in FPL. So let me give you all my secrets. Okay, so as much as I joke about rank, we know how ranks can change very quickly, especially at the start of the season. It is so volatile, but I've had a brilliant start, but that can all change very quickly. And I do have some issues in my side. The first being double Forest defense. They conceded 3 to West Ham. Who would have thought that would have happened after how West Ham started the season? And listen, Paqueta got his goal, Bowen got his goal, Callum Wilson got his goal. West Ham created an extra 2.42. They deserve to win. And this has kind of been a continuation of the back end of last season for Nottingham Forest, where the back end of the second half of the season, let's say, Nottingham Forest's expected goals conceded data weren't the same or weren't as good as it was in the first half of the season. And that's kind of continued. Forest haven't looked the same defensively. My biggest frustration has been Murillo. I bought in Murillo at the start of the season over Nico Williams, spending that at 0.5 because I expected DEFCON points. That was literally it. But so far, Murillo's been very disappointing. I think in the 3 games that he's played in the Premier League, he's got 6, 5, and 4. Who would have thought a DEFCON monster that we saw last season, Murillo, would have got that low of numbers? So that is something I am very concerned with going forward. And I will be looking at potentially transferring him out, which I will talk about in my transfer plans a bit later. Pedro Porro. Listen, I said I did not expect Pedro Porro to keep or Tottenham to keep a clean sheet against Bournemouth. I rate that Bournemouth attack with Semenyo, Evanilson, Iraola. I'm a massive fan of. But what I did say in my game with 3 team selection video was I think this is the opportunity for Pedro Porro to pick up DEFCON points. With Semenyo down his side, we know Semenyo is going to get a lot of the ball. And Pedro Porro, luckily, because he was on 9 at the end of the game, but obviously after Opta updated the stats, it went to 12. Pedro Porro did pick up the DEFCON points. It went up to 4 points in total. I'm very happy with that, to be honest. Cucurella, very fortunate. 6 points. And listen, Chelsea probably should have conceded. A lot of decisions went their way. But I want to talk about Cucurella in a bit more detail, which I will do shortly. But first of all, Richards as well. That's something I definitely got wrong in terms of overestimating the Aston Villa attack. Richards coming off Europe in the Conference League game. Palace went full strength. But Palace looked excellent. Chris Richards, as we've seen so far in the opening 3 games, is picking up very nicely in the DEFCON system. He got 2 DEFCON points again. And listen, Chris Richards is definitely an asset. I'm very happy owning into Game Week 4 when you're Sunderland at home. But let's look into Cucurella. So something I wanted to talk on was Cucurella's positioning during the opening 3 games in the Premier League. I've got Chelsea's average positions from the first 3 games. This one is against Fulham, the last game. This one is against West Ham. And this one is the opening game of the season against Crystal Palace. As we can see, this game is where Cucurella picked up the highest position. And why was that the case? Reece James. As we can see, when Reece James has played at right back, Cucurella then gets more license to push forward because Reece James is the one that inverts into that third centre-back role. Whereas when Malo Gusto plays, as we can see here, and in over here against Fulham, Cucurella is the one that has to invert into that third centre-back role. Of course, there's times where Cucurella does get the license to go forward. But compared to when Reece James plays, as we can see, it is nowhere the same. Am I saying Cucurella is a bad asset? No, he's still a phenomenal asset, but I still think the inclusion of Reece James makes Cucurella a standout 6 million defender, whereas when Malo Gusto plays, it becomes a bit debatable. Okay, so let's look into my midfield and let's start with Elliot Anderson, because he's frustrated me. 3 games in a row, 11 DEFCON. I don't think that will happen again this season, and listen, it is a joke, but at the same time, he's 1 away. 1 more ball recovery, 1 more interception, 1 more tackle, and Elliot Anderson would have picked up those 2 extra points. So I am very hopeful going forward that Elliot Anderson does hit that 12 threshold, even though over the opening 3 games it has been very frustrating. But I don't want to waste a transfer on Elliot Anderson just yet. The next 2, let's talk about together, Salah and Gakpo. I think the Liverpool-Arsenal game went exactly how we thought it would go. It was going to be a very cagey game. We know how good Arsenal are. Even with the Saliba injury, Mascara came in, slotted straight in. And Arsenal are obviously very hard to break down. They didn't go with Odegaard. They went with Marino, Zubimendi and Rice in midfield. It made it very difficult for Liverpool to break them down. And it took 1 moment of magic from Szoboszlai. So fair play on Liverpool getting the 3 points. But listen, I think from an FPL point of view, it went exactly how we thought it would have gone. Let's start with Iliman Ndiaye next. Everton, a lot better going forward, as we've seen over the opening 3 games. Defensively, a bit more vulnerable, we can say. But listen, we've seen the quality that Everton have. Grealish, Shrewsbury Hall, Better obviously came into the game this weekend. But one thing I would say with Everton is that it seems like everything is going through Jack Grealish a bit more, which from a bonus point of view, if things are going through Ndiaye less, it's not as beneficial. But at the same time, if Ndiaye is picking up these goals for 6.5 or 6.6, whatever he is right now, I don't know, it is very, very beneficial. And we saw it was a similar goal to how we scored it in game week 2, where the ball came in across the box. Ndiaye in the right place at the right time to slot in. So Everton, much, much better going forward. I'm very happy owning him and have been very happy over the last 2 weeks when he's picked up the goal. Bruno Fernandes is who I went with as captain. Obviously, if you watch the game with 3 team selection video, it was either Bruno or Cunha. But as I said on the video 11, if you guys haven't watched it, go check it out, was Bruno Fernandes can play worse and he'll pick up points. Obviously, he picked up 2 for DEFCON, and as I said, Bruno Fernandes is a 90-minute man. He's Manchester United's penalty taker. So when people say it was luck that he got that penalty, listen, everything suggested that Bruno Fernandes was going to be on the pitch, and everything suggested that if United got a penalty, he would take it. I don't think that's luck. I just think that's smart decision making. And listen, Bruno Fernandes was on the pitch right at the end, 94th minute. He had the penalty more often than not, because obviously he missed the one against Fulham. Bruno Fernandes is going to score. So as a Bruno Fernandes owner, I was very happy. Of course, as I said, as soon as I went with Bruno as captain, or bringing Bruno in, let's say, I knew it was only going to be a short-term punt. The reason I went with Bruno is just, like I said, I didn't really have a captaincy option going into this week. Obviously, Salah against Arsenal was the only real captaincy potential. I have João Pedro, which I'll talk about a bit later. Was I really hopeful that a game against Fulham is going to be high scoring? The answer was no. So I took the risk with Bruno. And listen, I was literally relying on the penalty, and the penalty happened, and Bruno Fernandes obviously scored. So I'm very, very happy getting a 10-pointer for Bruno, 20 in total as my captain. Let's get into my attack. Okay, so let's get onto my front line, and let's start with João Pedro. Let's start with the first thing I want to talk about, which was with Cole Palmer. I did expect João Pedro to be on penalties, and Enzo Fernandez obviously took the penalty that Chelsea got. That did surprise me. That is something that, let's say, going forward, that is maybe if we ever want to captain João Pedro, something that we have to keep an eye on. But at the same time, we know and we saw how good João Pedro is against Fulham. And we know the quality he has in the air. And we've seen it for Chelsea. We saw it for Brighton. We've seen it for Watford. João Pedro is a monster in the air. And he obviously got another headed goal against Fulham. Overall, I'm very, very happy with that, because Chelsea had, like, let's say, a changed front line with obviously Cole Palmer out, Liam Delap getting injured. So I'm very, very happy with that. And we know Fulham are very hard to break down. The one I'm not happy with is Ollie Watkins. Again, Ollie Watkins blanked. Listen, Aston Villa had a changed 3 behind Ollie Watkins, which is something I've been criticising Unai Emery for in the opening 2 games. And it still didn't really, let's say, come to fruition from an FPL point of view. Obviously, Villa do have good fixtures going forward, but with the signing of Jadon Sancho, do we expect that to change a lot? I'm not too sure. Harvey Elliott is a very good signing. Obviously, Aston Villa are probably going to get it done today. Let's see how the attacking dynamics change. For now, listen, I am a bit side-eyeing Aston Villa, and I'm a bit side-eyeing Ollie Watkins, because I've been very, very disappointed. But let's get into my transfer plans, because that's where you might see who I'm looking to transfer out Ollie Watkins for. And the man I'm looking at is Jean-Philippe Mateta. Obviously, when Crystal Palace lost Berucci Eze, we thought maybe the creativity would go down. But Crystal Palace against Aston Villa, a very difficult fixture on paper, you would say, and Crystal Palace looked brilliant. A 3-0 victory. And one thing I would say now with Eze gone is that Mateta is definitely on penalties. And that's obviously a benefit in terms of how we're looking at Mateta as an asset going forward. And listen, Mateta has Sunderland at home in game week 4. That is a brilliant fixture if you're going to bring in a Crystal Palace asset. So I am looking at Mateta, especially with Ollie Watkins being disappointing. But there's also one more transfer that I am potentially looking at. And that is this, Munoz. Listen, as I said, Nottingham Forest have frustrated me. Murillo has frustrated me. But one thing we know is how good Munoz is going forward. We've seen it over the previous years. Munoz in FPL is a brilliant, brilliant asset. So I'm looking to bring him in. Obviously, a brilliant game week 4 fixture against Sunderland. The only thing I would say is with Munoz, Mark Guehi is going to depart Crystal Palace to join Liverpool as of the time of recording. This is on deadline day. How would that change the Crystal Palace defense is something that I think a lot of people will think about. But at the same time, I'm a really, really big fan of Oliver Glasner. And we've seen it with the departure of Eze in terms of how the attacking dynamic has looked. It's looked, let's say, so far, so, let's say, similar. So with Guehi gone, I think they're obviously looking at a couple centre-backs, Crystal Palace. I do expect Crystal Palace to stay as defensively resolute that they have looked over the first, let's say, 3 games and over the previous season under Oliver Glasner, because I think Crystal Palace are currently 14 games unbeaten, which is phenomenal. So that is something I will be looking at. And listen, I love Munoz in FPL, so I will probably make this transfer game week 4. But listen, only time will tell. Before we end this video, make sure you guys like the video, comment your thoughts on my team, subscribe to the channel, and listen, if you want another green arrow, make sure you guys turn the notification bell on so you're first to watch FPL Hive's new videos. But that'll be it for today.